Expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Live Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. Good to have you guys here today. Chat is open. If you're watching live, you're invited to be a part of the conversation. If you haven't followed or subscribed or hit like or whatever you can hit wherever you're watching, do it now so you can get notifications for more great interviews. Today, we're going to talk to someone who kind of got some notoriety on The Bachelor, but I got to tell you, there's a lot more to this young lady than just being on The Bachelor. We'll talk about some of that, but we're going to talk about her new book. It is called Made for This Moment. My guest is Madison Prewett, and I think you're going to enjoy this because Maddie has some real depth and just a solid background, and I think that I was encouraged listening to some of her other interviews and going, okay, this is an interesting situation because God really has prepared her for some things, and it's fun to hear her testify about it. So with that, Madison, welcome to Life Today Live.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this. I just have been so prayerful and the people that have come alongside of me and really helped get this message out there. So I just want to say thank you so much for helping get Made for This Moment out there.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with that, Made for This Moment. Give people a little bit of an idea of the message here, and then we'll get into some of your history and where it's come from, because I think people will enjoy that. I enjoyed learning a little bit about you, but talk about the message itself that's in the book.
So I actually started writing this book before I ever went on The Bachelor, which is it's not something a lot of people know, but I started working on this book before I ever knew there was going to be a TV show, before I ever knew I was going on The Bachelor, and really felt like God put a message on my heart for this generation. And I started writing, of course, had no idea, who it was for, how it was going to reach people. I mean, at that time, I had, 2,000 followers, and I just was living my life. And when I did go on the show and I came off The Bachelor, I had so many DMs and so many people asking me, Maddie, how are you able to stand firm under pressure? How are you able to stay true to yourself? And what I saw was, even though, people who watched the show weren't, on other reality TV shows and didn't have the exact same circumstances on the outside that maybe I had in that season of my life, they still could feel the relatability of those moments or those temptations or those pressures of, do I compromise? Do I settle? Do I conform? Do I give in? Do I become something that I'm not? Do I change myself to be more accepted and liked? And I saw so many crying out saying, Maddie, how did you do that? I want to be able to do that. And, at the same time, I was having publishers and agencies reaching out, wanting me to write a book. And I was like, well, actually, I already started writing one. So it was really such a God thing. And I was able to kind of take some of those questions people were asking. I was able to also really take what God had been really showing me and revealing to me in that season, which was the story of Esther 4:14, which the verse reads, for maybe you have been called to this royal position for such a time as this. And that was the verse that God had laid on my heart for that season. And then I was also able to really go back to, the season before I had any bit of a platform, before I was ever on a show, and go back to those moments and what God was speaking to me and what I was writing, and really combine all of that. And so that was kind of, how the book got started. And, I know that, so many in this world, in this generation, like, they long to know their worth and their purpose, and they seek the courage to stand up for what they believe in. And that's what I saw. And I wanted to help people, learn to fight for their identity and to walk out their purpose with confidence and stand firm in their faith with that strength, that grace, and that courage, and to know that they have been made for this moment. And there's a lot of confusing standards and mixed messages out there. And I just want to see my generation, live in their faith and in their purpose with courage and conviction. And so that really is the summary, even though that sounded like a lot. That was actually my short version of this book. And I'm just so passionate about this message. And I really feel like it's a message that, has changed my life, and that I want to see God continue to change others' lives with it as well.
So here's the interesting thing about that, because, you turn around and you look backwards at your life, you can go, oh, okay, I totally see what God was doing. But at the time, it almost sounds crazy. I mean, you start writing a book when who's going to read it? Who's going to publish it, right? Tell me a little bit about your parents and your background, because I know that was an influence on you.
So I was raised in just such a faith-filled environment. Both of my parents, loved God and really showed my sisters and I the importance of having a relationship with Jesus from a young age, as well as, being plugged in and involved with the local church, as well as serving other people. Like, I really got to see my parents live that out. And it was something that I wanted from a young age because I saw their passion for it and their heart for it. And I had, two parents who really come from kind of broken backgrounds, neither of them really having a present father in their own lives, and having two incredible mothers. And I'm close with both of my grandmothers, but there was a lot that they even had to work through, but yet they came together. They really allowed God to be at the center of their marriage and their relationship. And they poured so much into my sisters and I, and really just were so life-giving. And they would just speak so much life over me every day. You're a dreamer. You're a world changer. You're going to do great things. God has plans and purposes for your life. And I don't know a day that I didn't hear that from my parents. But at the same time, they were so practical with me. And, they gave me the discipline. They put me in my place, and really just kind of shaped me and refined me and helped me steward, because every gift can also be used as a curse, right? And so I've always been this strong, passionate, stubborn type leader personality. And from a young age, that was something my parents had to really figure out. How can we steward this to where we don't crush this and diminish this because it's a good and God thing, but how can we steward this to where it's used for God's purposes and not for selfishness? And so they had to really figure that out with me from a young age. And like I said, it came with a lot of discipline. I got a lot of frowny faces and spankings, and that was just my life and my situation growing up. And I think having my dad as a coach, he was my basketball coach all growing up. I think having him as a coach also was really helpful just for that as well.
Yeah, and yes, a total kudos to your parents. But at the same time, as a parent of four, I know very well, and growing up in ministry and seeing other preachers' kids and things like that, I know that parents can do everything they can, but it really comes down to a personal choice.
Yeah.
What formed you to give you that foundation that this carried you through today?
So I had a strong relationship with God, honestly, from a very young age. But I would say, high school is always that weird time where you're like growing into yourself and you're like, who am I? What am I feeling? What's going on? And so during my high school years, even though I was still, leading the chaplains and FCA and like all of these things, I still was really struggling with a personal relationship with God, and also with what my real identity was. I was placing my identity in, in what other people thought about me, and my accolades and awards from basketball and being a successful, student and getting good grades. Like, it was in all of these performance-based, striving kinds of situations. And it was really in college when I felt like I was really broken down and kind of stripped away from a lot of the things that had really, made me confident for so long. And I was really brought to this place of, man, all these things have been kind of ripped away from me. So who am I? Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I really made a decision, Lord, I want to go all in with you. Even when I had all of these things, I was still left empty inside and still striving for more. And I'm sick and tired of that. And so I just want to go all in with you. I want you to tell me who I am. I want you to show me what you have for my life. And that was at the beginning of college, and really it changed everything for me. I started getting super involved in my church. I started leading the college ministry at my church, and ultimately not only graduated from Auburn University with a degree in communications, but also at the same time graduated with a certificate in ministry and pastoral leadership through Bible college. And just knew, like, I want to do something that's going to add value. I want to do something that's going to make a difference for the kingdom and for something that's so much bigger than me. And so that was really the game changer for me, was that moment in my dorm room freshman year. Nothing crazy happened. It was literally just me and God alone in my dorm room. And I just made a decision that has changed my life forever.
Yeah. And that's what I want people to hear, because it comes down to that. I'm curious, the Highlands College pastoral ministry degree, is that affiliated with Chris Hodges?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Chris is a friend of the ministry. I like him a lot. Okay, so we're going to dive into The Bachelor, but I want to show people the book again. This is Made for the Moment by Madison Prewett, available now. You can check her out at maddieprewett.com. It looks like this. It looks like a movie trailer when you hit that website, let me tell you. maddieprewett.com. It's in the chat for those of you who are interested. So here, okay, so I know you're not my priest, Madison. I fully recognize that. I'm not even Catholic. So I have a confession anyway. And I think a lot of people probably have this reaction in the church. And I really, So I'm like, okay, I've seen clips of The Bachelor. I've never like watched a season or anything. I don't think I've made it through an entire episode, even though my wife and my daughters-in-law used to sit around and watch and follow this thing. It was great for them. It was bonding time. But it's just, when I hear, okay, Christian girl goes on The Bachelor, I had a negative reaction. And then I checked myself because I'm the guy that does this interview show that we talk about Christians should go into all the world and be a light and yada, yada, yada. And yet I had this kind of negative, and I really just kind of had to go, what this judgmental kind of thing in me is just wrong, right? Did you face any of that?
I face that every day. And that was something that was honestly really hard for me at the beginning when I felt like God was leading me to go on the show. And to a lot of people, that doesn't make sense. To be honest with you, even when I felt that, it didn't make sense. And that's why I had a lot of pushback. I was this girl who just graduated from Bible college. I was this girl who had been dating this pastor for 4 years, but ultimately that relationship ended. And I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to go on this reality TV show and for, God to be leading me there like that. Things aren't adding up. Right. And it was really hard for my mind to comprehend that. But ultimately, I just knew at the core of who I was, that was where I was being led to go. And I actually had a lot of pushback, a lot of attack, a lot of judgment, a lot of being misunderstood, not just from the world, but from the church. And that was the hardest thing, I think, because at the end of the day, we are, like you said, like we're called to follow the Spirit and wherever God leads. And we're also called to go into the world and make disciples of all nations. And you look all throughout Scripture, you look at Jonah, you look at Hosea, you look at Esther, you look at all of these different figures in the Bible. And for a lot of them, they were called to do something that had never been done before. They were called to step into a position that, really probably didn't even make sense. And they trusted. And I think that God gives us those opportunities every day. And I think that, for me, it really came down to, okay, Lord, I surrender, and I trust that wherever you lead, I will go. And it was a really hard moment. There were moments when there were a lot of people saying things and it really got to me. This was before I went on the show and people were starting to find out that I was going on it. And a lot of the church kind of just giving me pushback and, losing a lot of relationships that I had in my life for a long time because of just the judgment or the rumors and the opinions. And, for me, that was really difficult. And I remember saying, God, like, this is only a glimpse of what I'm about to step into. And I don't think I can handle it. Like, this is too much. And this is hurtful. Like people that have known me for 10 years that don't truly believe that I've heard your voice in this and that are judging my character and my convictions and my relationship with you. And I just can't take it. Like, it's just too much. And I remember I had a moment, when I was asleep one night and just kind of got woken up and just felt stirred within. And I just remember the Lord was like, you know what, you can fear man or you can fear me. And one day you're going to have to give an account for your life and for your actions. And I don't want you to have to look me in the eyes and say, you know what, I didn't do what you called me to do because other people had something negative to say about it. I want to hear, good job, my good and faithful servant. I'm so proud of you. I gave you this calling. I gave you, this is what you're supposed to do. I gave you these gifts and you were faithful and you were obedient, whatever the cost. And in that moment, I was like, you're right, Lord, like you're right. And you've called me to obey you and follow you, whatever the cost. And just because it doesn't look like what I thought for myself, it doesn't align with what I had always pictured for myself, and it doesn't fit the box that other people had also placed me in, I have to trust you're leading me here. So you're going to sustain me. You're going to protect me. You're going to defend me. You're going to make a way where there is no way. And that's just who you are. And even if you don't, you're still good, because this is where you're calling me, and I'm still going to trust you in that. And so it was really hard. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of faith. It took a lot of trust. And now looking back, it's so crazy because I've seen what God has done with it. But in the moment, I had no idea what was going to come. I had no idea how I was going to be portrayed, what was going to be shown of me on reality TV, what was going to come out of it, that I was going to make it to the end and now have this opportunity to write a book and talk about my faith. I had no idea all that was going to come. It was just a yes. And it was just okay, God, I'll follow you. And that's why I encourage people all the time. You have no idea how one yes and one act of obedience and one act of courage can lead to other people's freedom, can lead to other people's revelation of who Jesus is, can lead to other people's act of courage. And so that's what I always encourage, my friends and, my people with is just, if God is leading you, even if it's not what you imagine for yourself, like say yes and just be courageous and trust like God's going to make a way.
Yeah. And that is truly amazing. I mean, there's that's one of the hardest things to do is to say yes especially when Christians are, giving you grief over it. That's very difficult. The experience on The Bachelor, I know everybody wants to know, but everybody wants to know, what was it like?
It was really hard. It was the hardest thing. Honestly, there's not even words. I feel like really hard does a really bad job of really encompassing the emotion and the feelings when I was there. But it was the hardest thing that I had ever experienced in my life. I mean, from filming and being completely isolated and alone, not having anything that had made me or things that I had really relied on or kind of fallen back on for most of my life, kind of being stripped of all of that and really it just being me and God was one of the hardest things ever and really tested my faith. And on top of that, you're having pressures and opinions and you're in a crazy environment. And so it was extremely difficult. And then you get home and you're having to rewatch all of that and things you didn't even see and experience because you're in your own world while you're filming and things you're having to see and experience. And then also inviting in millions and millions and millions of people's opinions. You're seeing your name on, magazine covers and on podcasts and on Instagram accounts and things that aren't true, things that are, crazy that they're even looking into that and diving into that. I mean, it's just really insane. And for me, it was really difficult because I think being misunderstood at such a big level, like something that with The Bachelor and just a platform like that and being just misunderstood at such a big level was just really, really hard for me. And just wanting to justify myself and explain myself and say, no, like, that's not true. That's not right. That's not me. But just having to trust, like, okay, God, like you're my defender, you're my protector. And I just have to trust that. But there were a lot of really low moments and just saying, God, where are you? Like, I need you to show up right now. I don't feel like I have the strength to keep going. I really need you to give me the grace and the courage to take another step and to trust you in this moment, even when I don't see it or feel it. I just need you. I need your presence. And so it was a lot of those moments of just like crying myself to sleep and just trusting, okay, God, you got it. You got me. You see me. You love me. And just reminding myself of that over and over again.
Did God show up for you on the set?
He did a lot of times. And it took, honestly, me locking myself in a bathroom and shutting myself off from everyone else and just opening up the Bible and just speaking God's word and God's truth over and over and over again. And just honestly, just opening up my hands and like sometimes not even having words to pray, but just listening and just sitting and just trusting. And so that there were a lot of those kinds of moments. It definitely took me just isolating myself and locking the bathroom door, not letting anyone else in and just praying my little heart out.
Out of that, your followers on the social media went from a few thousand to millions. And now you have a chance to speak to a lot of people that wouldn't know who you are or maybe wouldn't even listen. What are you seeing in this season?
I think one of the biggest messages that I like to encourage people with is, the strength that so many people saw in the public with my personal life was directly connected to the decisions that I was making in private when no one was background. And what I mean by that is your toughest decisions in life and your most pressuring moments will require a lot of strength and courage. But yet that strength and courage doesn't just pop up and arrive in the heat of the moment when all eyes are on you, when all pressure is on you. It's developed in those moments when no one is around. And that's something I talk a lot about in my book, is just the power of those private life moments when you're asking yourself, who am I? Who has God called me to be? What is my purpose here on this earth? What do I really believe? Because when those moments of pressure come, and that might be, you're alone in a room with that guy, or you're in a situation with around a lot of people and they're making choices and decisions that you don't totally agree with, or you're in a job where you could cut corners or cheat or whatever it is, and you're faced with those pressures and those temptations, you got to know who you are. You got to know what you believe. And that's all going to be because of who you are when no one is around, and in those private life moments and decisions, because that's where, growth is happening and strength and endurance are built, and where you're equipped with what you need to make sure that you're ready when those moments of pressure come. And so that's what I like to encourage people with. I think it's something that's not talked about enough. I think that our world puts a whole lot of emphasis on those big life moments, the social media highlight reel, TikTok viral moments. And not a lot of people are talking about, those everyday, small moments that actually prepare you for the big moments.
Yeah, you've been able to share this now for, the book's been out a few months, and you've been in a lot of places where you've shared this type of message and your story. What kind of feedback are you getting?
It's been so cool to hear. It's what makes it all worth it, right? Like hearing the testimonies and the people, the moms who are running up to me, crying with tears in their eyes, saying, like, Maddie, I haven't been able to have this kind of a conversation with my daughter until now. And I just want to say thank you. And thank you for being, that light and that role model for my daughter to look up to, young girls coming up to me crying, saying, because of your, strength and confidence, I've been able to make a sane decision for my life, that I want to save myself for marriage, because you showed the world that you can do that with confidence and with courage. And I've made that decision for myself. I've had people give their hearts to Jesus because they saw how passionate I was for the Lord. And it's been so crazy. And I think for me, what that shows me, man, is just that God can use anyone and anything. Man, he used someone like me. He used something like The Bachelor to bring glory to his name and to point people back to him. And it just shows me that he can't be limited. He can't be boxed in. And that's just how big he is. And I look at my life, I look at my season, I look at my, path and what's led to here, and just all the craziness that's happened over the past few years. And I'm like, only God could have used someone like me and could still be doing something like this just to reach this world. And especially, something like The Bachelor that has, the reputation that it has and the things that come with it. But God was able to bring his light even in all of that. And I just think that that's so cool, and just a testament to just how good and how big he is. And so the testimonies have made all of it worth it. And just the people that have come up and shared, their experiences and their encouragement by, the way that the Lord has just been faithful in my life. And so that's what keeps me going. Honestly, it's what gets me through a lot of the crap that comes with all of it.
Right. No. And God, good for you. I love it. I really love it. Some of those friends that when you decided to go on The Bachelor that were not happy with your decision for whatever reason, have any of them come back around?
They have a little, and a lot of them really just being honest with me and crying to me and just saying, I'm so sorry. And I apologize for the things that I said and the things that I did. Like, will you forgive me? And I was like, listen, I forgave you a long time ago, It does nothing for me to hold bitterness or resentment or anger. And honestly, I understand. And that was the thing, is even when I was getting pushback, I wasn't sitting here like, why are they thinking these thoughts? I understood. I got it. If someone would have come up to me, if one of my friends would have come up to me and say, hey, I feel like God's calling me to go on The Bachelor, I would have knocked them upside the head and been like, you're crazy. Like, no, he's not. So I totally understood where people were coming from, but it still was hurtful, and it still was people. And so I accepted their apologies and forgave them. And, of course you still have to protect yourself. And that doesn't mean that those people just become your best friends again.
Sure.
But I definitely, forgave them, and we have good standings now. And, we both were able to just hear each other out and just be honest with each other, I think, which was really important. And I talk about that too in my book, because I think for a lot of us, so many times things that have happened in the past and things that other people have done to us or said about us, or even mistakes that we've made in our own personal lives can hold us back and keep us from stepping into all God has for us. And the past can haunt us, the past can hold us. And I think for me, in order for me to step into the fullness of what God had for me, I had to really let go of a lot of the relationships and things that had happened that were haunting me and tormenting me, and the things that I was holding on to. And when I was able to really move past my past, I was able to step into, that made for this moment mentality of, there's too much, on my life. There's too much to be done. There's too many people to reach for me to be petty and for me to, get hung up about certain things. Like I need to live freely and to live abundantly, and to remind myself that this life is so much bigger than me and it's not even about me. So
yeah. Well, so going forward, what are we going to see from Madison Prewett?
Honestly, this book has been my whole life the past year and a half, 2 years. I mean, it really has. Each season, each month, kind of bringing about different things out of it. I've been doing a lot more speaking. I've been doing a ton of interviews and really just trying to get this message out there, because I'm so passionate about it. And I just know that this world needs to hear it, and not because I wrote it, but because it was something that God spoke directly to me and something that's changed my life personally. And so I just know that it can encourage this world. And so this has kind of honestly been my life. And, going into this, next year, we'll see what comes. We'll see what happens. I don't know what all it's going to look like. I hope to just continue to write. I would love to write a second book. I'd love to write a devotional for this. I'd love to continue speaking. And so we'll see. I'd love those things to happen. Love to, maybe meet my husband. Those are all things that I'm hoping for this next year. But, just kind of living surrendered and taking it a day at a time, and just honestly honored to be a part of all that God's doing and to be a part of this message. So excited.
Well, maybe God's still preparing that guy, because he's not quite there, but close. So we'll see. It'll be good. Madison Prewett, thank you for your time. Thank you for your message and for sharing it with Life Today Live. I sure appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
And appreciate all you guys out there watching. Hit share, hit like, hit follow, hit subscribe, whatever you hit, wherever you're watching. And check out Madison's book. It's available right now. It's great for anybody who is struggling with the things we all struggle with. Come back next time. We'll see you here again tomorrow on Life Today Live.
To choose to come, to choose to bend our necks, to choose to bend our necks, and to choose to learn. It is always possible to do the will of God. Nobody can prevent you from doing the will of God.